these meetups to help people connect on a data topics, interesting connections to be made in the local area, as well as having some great presenters come in. And Nicole and I are looking forward to more events in 2021. If you have suggestions or ideas, feel free to ping us and make that connection in the chat by exchanging LinkedIn or emails. For tonight, we have a great presentation lined up from a recurring speaker for us, Chris Wagner, who is going to share with us Rockwell's journey to the cloud and embracing self-service. Take it away, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, Nicole. I'm super excited to be here with all of you. I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to work in this space quite heavily over the last. Where did my monitor go? Oh, there it goes. Work in this space for quite a while, and this is going to be a conversation where we're going to talk about those initial movements and what it's been like moving out to the cloud. This is going to be all us talking together. So I'm here to talk with you about your questions and challenges as when it comes to moving to the cloud and working in the cloud, because that is very different. So if you have anything, please, come off mute, ask the question, or if you don't feel like that, post your question in chat. Paul will be happy to jump in. This is, I don't have any demos on this. I can't demo moving a company to the cloud. Like that is that's a big process, right? So, please do come and make that question, or come in off mute, ask those questions. All right. Who am I? I am a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I got my MVP title last year. I'm renewing again this year. I'm also an analytics architect for Rockwell Automation. I provide detailed cloud and BI and data solution support for our 14. Oh, I'm sorry. We used to have 1,400 Power BI Pro developers. We now have 30,000 Power BI Pro developers. Yeah, we took a jump in our new contract. So we now have 30,000 Power BI Pro developers I provide solution support for, or high-level support for. I provide more detailed and granular solutions to our 400 business unit content creators, and then I provide direct architectural and like code review and best practices, like hands-on stuff for our analytics engineers, our 30 to 40 analytics engineers who build out and manage Rockwell's AAS and large models that we use for analytics across the organization. I'm also the founder of Kratos BI, so this is my personal plug. Head out to my website. I've got a YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, leave comments. All that stuff really does help. They're not just joking. That does help if you do that. So please, if you could subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate that. New video out today on how you can build out maps that I partner with the people down at Discover AI or EI. Frankly, they blew me away, and I was so excited to be able to join with them to show you like some of the real great techniques for building out maps. All right. So today we have a number of different subjects that subjects that we're going to be kind of hitting on as part of this conversation. But again, it's a conversation back and forth. So please, ask your questions, see what's going on here. Okay. When we talk about moving to the cloud, we kind of went through two different phases. We did our lift and shift, and then we did our cloud optimization, right? We'll also be covering, what did we learn from that? What was good? What was bad? And then how does that, how does the act in the process of moving from on-prem into the cloud and refactoring apply when it comes to self-service? And I think this is one piece that that inside of business intelligence, this has been a place that BI has really been at the forefront of self-service, but this is an area where we're leading the way when it comes to application development or even infrastructure and cloud resources. Business intelligence has and people in BI have been grown accustomed to working in that self-service environment, and it's just now applications and infrastructures are coming along with that. And so think there's some real interesting learnings that can be applied across all three. All right. So, what am I talking about when it comes to lift and shift? All right, or IaaS. If you're not familiar with IaaS, this is infrastructure as a service. Rockwell's first move out to the cloud happened like 5 or 6 years ago, where we basically took everything that we had on premise, everything as it was, right? And we just moved it as it was into the cloud, right? Just basically, migrating, a one for one, there was a server A here, there was a server A in the cloud, right? That ensured that the migration and process was very easy to do. It ensured that, all the people and had all of the resources that they were accustomed to, just like it was in one place and then it was in another. Okay. Um, we had a lot of different learnings as we started to do this approach, but it was very clean and straightforward when it comes to making that migration. There were still a lot of things that we had to do because as we start to, well, I'll get into that just in a little bit. Um, when we moved out into the cloud, we decided to adopt a best-in-class strategy, where as we were moving out into the cloud and as we started to adapt new resources and capabilities that were now available because we were in the cloud, we went and we found what were considered, the best-in-class different resources for our data platform. That include things like Cloudera, Hadoop, SAP HANA, the SAP data warehouse, ERP. We had a nice DMZ zone with Kafka and all of these good things. We used Azure Data Catalog and a variety of different services inside of the cloud that we began to leverage. Okay. Now, this worked for a while and it was truly considered a successful move to the cloud. We did begin to start to struggle with some real big challenges following this approach when it came to the integration between these resources, when it became to the number of people it took to run and operate in the cloud, when it came to like our spending and our flexibility of our solutions. Really didn't evolve and change as we moved to this new infrastructure, right? We were still pretty much trapped in, okay, well, we got a box and we can kind of scale it up a little bit or down, but it's still that box and, we still have to manage it. And, our server team was still our server team, right? And, we still had all the resources and all the people and we were just now doing it on somebody else's computer, and we we were now just having to now integrate all these disparate things inside the cloud. And while it worked really well, and we gained some advantages when it came for performance, and when it came to actually being able to leverage and pull forward some of these new capabilities, there was still a lot that was left to be desired, right? Once we started to go through that, we weren't alone. There's lots of companies that made that initial push, and if you're still running on-prem and you're contemplating going to the cloud, I'd actually still probably recommend you considering a lift and shift approach, because this does lower your risk of day one issues when it comes to migrating into the cloud. All right, so there is still a lot in here that is very relevant to this day. Okay. Has anyone on the call been through a lift and shift when it comes to moving resources into the cloud? Paul, Nicole?
Yeah. Yep. We did a shift of some of our data and business intelligence resources, some of the servers, and just moved them into Azure from virtual machines on premise to virtual machines in Azure as part of some of the pieces of migration. But you also had a significant part where we refactored.
Sure. Yep. Yep. Anyone else? Chewy, I know you've done some of this.
um, I guess just in my previous job, what I'm working, I'm kind of new here, just 1 year and a half. But the so far, what I remember they did before was just, taking, like you were saying, this box completely from on-prem data centers, send them all over to a vendor data center. But that was the most I was involved for now.
Okay. All right. Kevin?
Yeah, hi. We're going through a more of a not a lift and shift, but as applications come to life cycle point, then we're moving to the cloud. So it's more of a wait and see and shift as they come up. So
Sure.
we're doing a greenfield SAP project, so we're moving that into the cloud. So
Okay. That's great. So have you had any struggles or challenges with that?
we're pretty early along right now. We're moving. We've just traded our production environment, but we don't go live until 22. So
Okay.
so far it's not completely in our hands. We're working with our integrator.
Okay. All right. Well, good enough. Yeah, and so that was one of the big learnings we had was the quality of your integrator, and if you're bringing in any services to help with you, that can really make a big difference between make or break on these big moves. Another thing that we realized as we were working and operating in the cloud was that we needed to shift the way we were investing our time and energy, and expand that to include people and resources who are dedicated to DevOps and CI/CD to ensure that everything we had that was in the cloud was captured in code, and we were able to do our deployments and do our migrations and get more towards that that goal of that true CI/CD pipeline where you can deploy your stuff at any point in time and not have to worry about breakages and whatnot. As we've continued to progress and work inside that space, uh, we've learned that there's a lot of effort to get to a true CI/CD point where you can, I'm not going to break anything, and I know I'm not going to when you push that button, right? So that's something that we had begun investing in. I would say we did a little bit at the start because we knew that was important, but it wasn't until we were further along that we realized like we need to be investing more time and energy into this. And so this is one of the areas that we have continued to funnel more energy and effort into. Chewy?
Just quick question. I see in your graphic you have Kafka. Uh, what do you have in Kafka in your organization?
So I heard someone say this, and I could be wrong, but I believe uh, the number was Rockwell devices produce 35% of the world's IoT information.
Wow.
I don't know if that's really true or if someone's just boasting, but uh, like our switches are in every manufacturer
Yes.
around, right? And that's just constantly pinging and sending out little bits of whatever. And so we have a lot of streaming information in there that are going into Kafka. I will say that I spend no time in the Kafka space, so I cannot speak greatly at that. But
You know if there is any integration between Kafka and Power BI so you can display data streaming data?
so yeah, you can display streaming data inside of Power BI, and Kafka is really just an API endpoint that you can point into into a Power BI streaming data set. So you can do that now. And Chewy, you should probably look on the Power BI cab team for some more information on
Yeah,
what's
I'm on
coming
that.
next.
I'm on that test.
Okay, all right.
But I was just wondering if you already have that in place.
Oh no.
Okay.
Our goal is right, and I'm going to get into that inside of our my next slide as we talk about that. But we do not have that today. We have done some samples on that. We have an AI that actually sits on top of our switches, and one of our switches, it's called a pick and place, and what it basically does is this little suction cup picks up something and puts it on a circuit board, right? And it's just doing that super fast, right? And um, there is each suction cup that picks something up and puts it has a lifespan, and when the suction cup starts to go bad, thing that's placing starts to drift, right? And so we've got lasers and whatnot, and we can detect a drift above a certain point, and then we stop it, and then we we replace the thing, and then it gets up and running.
Okay.
We have an AI that is built out to monitor the switch pressure sensors that then feed into a Power BI dashboard that are on assembly line workers. They actually see a shift change, which suction cups are predicted to go, and now they switch those out on each shift change so that nobody's shutting down lines anymore. That's millions of dollars in savings that flow through all across the board. So we're very excited about that. That's I think we have patents on all that stuff, right? Because it's a massive savings for all of our customers, right? And so we're happy to offer that out.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right.
I think
Kevin,
Kevin
do you
wanted
have
to talk.
Kevin has a hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I actually did this time, and sorry, last time I accidentally hit that, so that's why I sounded surprised.
It's all right.
But real quick, and maybe you're going to talk about this. I'm interested just if you had any real-time or near real-time reporting requirements coming from like an SAP or system or anything like that, and how did you kind of approach that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's one of the things we've actually kind of in some ways pushed back on. There's two categories of people who want real-time stuff: people who really need real-time data, and then people who think they want real-time data.
Yeah.
And when it comes to analytics, so far 98% really fit into that. I think I want real-time data. The reality is there are very niche reasons and places for people wanting real-time data. And so we have built out solutions that address that. One is that streaming data sets and that AI, and we do that in very small, like those small niche solutions. But sometimes people talk about wanting streaming analytics, right? And that's a completely different thing. For those, we actually build out and manage and have two different models. We have cache models, and then we have live connect models, where we can just this one's focused in on a day or a very small period of time, but it's hitting back against the source systems that have the data live. And when I say live, there's still a sync, because in order to provide that snappy behavior that everyone loves in Power BI, we still do a good model around it. We still have manage our keys and all that good stuff, because as Alberto or Marco will say, a live connect still can still going against your database and expecting that model. And if your database isn't tuned enough, you won't get that performance. We are super excited about the next gen of what's coming out, and I have to say I don't remember what is NDA on this topic or not, so I am not going to go any further on that, because I like having my NDA access to stuff, and I don't want to spoil that. So,
Right.
but I think in the when's the next conference? Is it July or is it September? The big Microsoft.
Microsoft or no, I don't know. Sorry, I
Microsoft.
don't know. Yeah, Microsoft conference.
It's either in July they're going to make a big announcement, or September. So,
Okay.
or it's already been announced and I'm forgetting it. But there's the next gen of what will be out very soon is I really love the way that is about to be addressed inside of the service. So I'm excited about that next step, right? And so that's where the big place where we have requests for live information is inside Dynamics, right? Our salespeople want to know as opportunities arrive and those things hit and that type of thing. This is one space where we do have that. Today, well, actually, I could talk about today how we're other ways that we're addressing it. So we have our cached model, our cache dynamics model, and all of that good stuff. But we also leverage the Power Apps and the integrated Power App inside of Power BI, so that people can see those tickers go up as people are interacting inside of Dynamics. It goes up, but they can also then inside of Power BI provide that feedback into Dynamics as well. So when people find opportunities or as they're analyzing things, they find things that they should be updating inside of Dynamics, they can do that right inside one pane of glass without having to like bounce around from application to application. And that's been hugely successful.
Thank
Great.
you.
You
Thank you,
bet.
Chris.
Yeah. And please keep them coming, because otherwise, it's just me talking and that's boring. All right. And our next phase, once we kind of went through and we learned, and I'll say we weren't super strict in our IaaS and just lift and shift. I mean, we did lots of it, but we did, to Kevin, what you're saying, like new or apps that were being, at EOL'd, right? Like, or just, like, hey, we really need to refactor them. Well, we didn't refactor them on premise and then deploy them out. We just did greenfield inside of Azure. But that is what enabled us for this phase. And this is really the big phase that we are in right now. And that's really our cloud optimization phase, right? And the goal around our cloud optimization phase is to move off of all of our IaaS solutions and move more into services and platforms as a service solution, so that we stop having to manage all of this infrastructure, manage all of these networks, manage all of these additional things, right? And we're seeing significant success with that, because as we make these transitions, we're able to appropriately scale our resources accordingly, right? Where we used to have 50 people that were necessary to support things, we're now down to 5 to 10, right? So that's doing a lot when it comes to gaining efficiencies. Now, that doesn't necessarily cover the cost of that, but there is still a lot of efficiencies that are gained. All right. And so this is our new infrastructure that we're going to. This is your classic Microsoft Data Cloud platform. It is about as straight as out of the book as we possibly could get. And there are a lot of reasons for that. As I kind of mentioned, one of our big challenges around our best in class solution design was that we were spending a lot of time having to integrate between all of these different systems. That's not real value add, right? Like, the value of technology isn't in doing more technology. The value of technology is helping the business accomplish more, right? And we were realizing we were spending more and more time on technology, and we realized that that we needed to find a more efficient, effective way to manage these solutions. And so that's where we started to really shift and shape our way from those infrastructure as a service and into these service solutions. Now, what I regret is not in this diagram, and I've been regretting this for like a year. We're still on the same diagram, but that's the point of reference architecture, right? You set it out there, and everyone works towards it, right? But that we're not showing one thing here, and the big key thing that we have that's not in this diagram is we have what's called a process control framework. That process control framework is basically dev or the CI/CD processes for managing data assets inside the cloud. So inside of our process control framework, we identify all of our files, tables, fields, data types, business definitions, where it exists in each of the layers, the security that's wrapped around it. It's all captured inside this process control framework, and it allows us to actually stand up and hydrate our environment within I think we could do it within like 48 to 72 hours, which means that because we've chosen a lot of tools, while they're all integrated, they are very platform agnostic, right? Like Spark SQL is, you can run Spark SQL anywhere, right? We're using, open source file formats, the Delta Lake file format. We're using, our process control framework leverages lots of, basic things. So we could pick this up and we could drop this onto AWS. We could pick this up and drop it onto Google, and for the most part, get everything up and running within 48 to 72 hours. We look at this as a massive advantage for us, going back to the whole point of us being able to provide, or our switches being able to provide 35% of the IoT information of the world, is that we know this, we own this, we know this is state. We also know our switchers and the data that comes out of our switches better than anyone else. We're looking at this as something that we can provide our customers as an additional service and a source of revenue for us. So this is going to go from just being a data cost center to something that we're going to be spinning out and being able to supply and provide for our customers wherever they exist, right? So I can't talk about the 3 clients that I know of that we're partnering with right now, because I don't know if any of that's public. But we're in the process of deploying this and running this inside their environments, and because it's all generic scripts and whatnot, we can do that. Now everyone's that we work with is all Azure in the first one, so that's makes it much easier for us. But we can deploy this, we can make these things available for them. That makes the work that we do infinitely more valuable, and really a potential source of revenue for our company. And so we're super excited about that, and we're excited about taking that concept to anything and everything we do when it comes to, on the Power BI side, when it comes to how we manage our models, when it comes to the reports that we build. We do that with an eye towards, okay, hey, how can we make this as a service that our clients could be like, yeah, we're just gonna buy that. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just subscribe to that as a service. Paul.
Yeah, that you're making me think. I don't know if you get into it, but you're making me think about when this is an architecture that is not just for Rockwell internal needs, but you're serving your customers and it's something they can use. It makes me think about issues of data asset ownership. Like, does this become something that the customers is just a template they use, or is this some sort of extended service? And then how does that data fold into Rockwell working as an with data as an asset? If you
That,
can speak
that
to
is a
that.
great question. And
Yeah.
yes, those are the products.
Okay.
Right?
Hmm.
That is what is going to be in the marketing material, is in the marketing materials, right? Like, these are the things that are, oh, you just want the templates? Hey, that's great. There it is. Oh, and this is the reality for lots of manufacturers. Oh, you don't want to take on this burden of doing and running and managing this stuff.
Hmm.
Excellent. For what you will find to be is a small percentage of what you could do this, yourselves. Here you are. Here's our suite of tools. Here's our suite of data. Here's our suite of information, and it is available for you, right? And that is the ultimate goal, right? We're in the process of getting to that right now, right? And again, all possible because we're doing this with
Cloud tools.
in cloud tools and literally all of these processes for that really exists can scale nearly infinitely, right? Anytime we load a file, the first thing that happens when a file is being loaded is we stand up a server for that file. The file gets accessed, the file gets loaded, and then the server gets shut down, right? We never have contention. We never have, oh, well, there's too many files loading, right? Because we spin up servers, like on demand in order to meet those needs. And that's all
Sure.
part of that process control framework, that magic that just kind of makes these things happen.
Sure.
The real
Thanks.
what's that?
I was saying good. Yeah. Thanks. You've
Yeah.
answered.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, the cool thing I love about that is, oh, that file, that code, it's running for like 4 hours, like, or whatever, real long. Oh, dial up the size of the server, right? Like, okay, this server is 4 hours. Here you go, done in 30 seconds, right? And then we shut it down. And because of how the cloud works, like the cost of both of those, this for 4 hours or this for 30 seconds is the same. So it's super beneficial. It's wonderful. So very excited about it. Yeah. All right. Before I move on, any other questions here? No. I do want to put a little plug in for like data governance and management. I believe, now I'm looking at the slide, I didn't put in a follow-on slide on that. I can't begin to express how important it is to have good data governance and management, especially as you're beginning to work inside the cloud and you're starting to work in these data lakes environments where you're going to be automating the build outs and the generation of stuff. It is super easy for your environment to become a data swamp where it is like uncontrollable and unusable and inaccessible. Good data governance, while it may feel like it's slowing you down at the start of any project or engagement, the acceleration you get at the end, it is 10,000 times worth it. So invest in data governance. All right, let's keep going. All right, so I've kind of talked to you through like our initial move out. Oh, Kevin, did you have a question before I go on?
Oh, just wondering, did you take out your data catalog? I noticed on the other slide you had a data catalog in there as well. I'm just curious.
So we no, we did not, but we switched over to Calibra for our data catalog. Microsoft's data catalog at the time, which we went all in on, like really did not cut mustard, and we worked with Microsoft for a good like 4 or 5 years to get things brought up to snuff, and it just couldn't. We're kind of sad that like we were pushing them on, like we'd heard rumors about before Purview was even announced. We were pushing, like hearing rumors like, yeah, we understand it's bad. We have a new thing that's going to come up. Please just wait. Please just wait. And it got to the point where we couldn't wait any longer. So we signed the agreement with Calibra. We literally, like the day after we migrated all of our data catalog into Calibra, they announced Purview, and we're like,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. You win some, you lose some. So
All right.
we'll see. There's some actual data lineage issues that we're working through right now where we might pull Purview back in. So
Thanks.
yeah, great question. All
Did
right.
you look at Elation at all?
Yes. Well, let me clarify. Our data governance team looked at Elation. I don't know what they found.
Okay.
I saw them on the slide. Like we looked at Elation, Calibra, Informatica's catalog. There's one other big one. Doesn't matter. We looked like 4 or 5 of them. We got down to Calibra. We got Calibra. We installed Calibra. We rolled out Calibra, and then they announced Purview. Again, okay, that's fine. Because of security and lineage, we might pull Purview back in and have 2, so that would be fun. Because why not have 2 data cataloging tools, right? All right. So as we've been talking, I've kind of been going over some of the pros and cons, but these were kind of the real specific ones I wanted to make sure that I hit on. And these are the pros and cons of these solutions specifically that I think that ties into embracing self-service. And I'm going to get into that in just a second as well. All right. The number one big thing that we learned as part of our cloud migration and moving from an on-prem and like a lockdown infrastructure was that it was critical to have zero trust security across everything we do and everywhere that we're working in. These are concepts that that security teams and like that infrastructure team was very accustomed to managing inside of your 4 walls of your building. But when it came to moving out, outside of those four walls and now out into the cloud, what that meant when we got to zero trust really started to take on new meaning in life, and that was a concept that we had to extend out and explain beyond just IT. And that was something like our data science teams, the people that were trying to push and do like cutting edge stuff, getting them to understand what that meant when it came to zero trust, and when it came to security, and especially security around data, was a challenge, right? That was a big growing moment for us and for them, right? Because like, hey, I got access to this stuff here, no big deal. Why can't I continue to access this in the cloud? And it was a lot of it, comes down to like the zero trust and the security necessary, in order to ensure that you're enabling that, but also to ensure that you know, you're allowing people to get out there and explore new concepts, new tools, those types of things, right? So this was a new concept that is super important, a big learning. All right. The other big thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is working in the cloud is not the same as working on prem, right? There are lots of things that feel the same. There are lots of pieces that are similar, and maybe today it's becoming more and more blended and mesh. But uh, the number of things that you across your entire network and your ecosystem, they're really kind of were innately built and dependent upon you being um, on-prem really fall away the second you go to the cloud. And so there's a lot of training and re-education that's involved across not just your, again, not just your IT organization, but everyone that exists inside of your space, right? Like, training people, no, you can't save it to your personal OneDrive, right? Those types of things, right? Making sure people, really understand and get the differences there, between working in the cloud or on-prem was a challenge. And and that really comes down to a lot of this stuff. Even inside of our IT team, we have some people that have decades and decades of experience in managing infrastructure, and when there's an issue, sometimes the answer is you go into the server room and you find that hard drive that's giving you a problem, you pull out the hard drive and you put in a new one, right? And a billion other things that require physical access to the box now can't be, you can't do that to troubleshoot it anymore, right? You can't just head on over to Azure and look at that box to see if any of the lights are blinking, right? Now it's a completely different skill set. Now it's a different troubleshooting path, and getting people accustomed to that can be a real challenge, right? The next big thing that we realized as we were going to the cloud and starting to work out there is that any solution that you build out, you have to be looking at how that solution can scale, right? Classically, you like if we take an example like a data center, right? You would buy you'd look at your data assets and you'd say, okay, I've got 5 terabytes of data. I project growth of 30% a year. So over the course of 5 years, I'm going to amortize this box for, I'm going to need to get up to 20 terabytes of data. So you shop for a 25 terabyte Netezza box or Teradata box or whatever. You buy it, you put it in, um, and then you manage accordingly. In the cloud, it's very different, right? Your solutions need to be able to jump up or down in scale accordingly, right? That is super beneficial and a radical change, right? Like when you would buy that Netezza box, you were locked into that Netezza box for 5 years. Like you bet it all on Netezza, it better pay off, right? Because that you're riding that guy home, right? In the cloud, solutions, as long as your solutions scale and can move, you can try out in different things, and you can spin up the equivalent of a 25 terabyte Netezza box. But if it's not working, meeting your needs, spinning it down is just as easy, right? So there's lots of advantages with the scalability of solutions out in the cloud. It's something that you have to make sure that you're honed in on and you're paying attention to when it comes to solution design. Don't just fall into the rut of, hey, I use a SQL Server on-prem. Why don't I do a managed instance in the cloud, right? Like, hang on. That's fine. I'm not trying to bash managed instance, but there are lots of other solutions out there that will, provide you some scalability that, you can really benefit from. All right. The next big thing, and I've mentioned this a number of times before, is the integration of your different solutions, right? Following our best-in-class strategy was literally what everyone else was doing, right? So we were with all of the other Fortune 500 companies, and we were doing best in class, and that was all right because everyone else was doing it, right? So nobody could blame us or fault us for it. But we were really challenged when it came to the integration of solutions and when it came to the integration of the work that we were doing, and that became a real big problem, right? I said it before, but that goes down to not just the large projects that are out there, but the small projects, right? And combine that with this, the need to scale and the need to have integrated solutions, and what you can do when you have a solution that can scale infinitely, and is fully integrated is far more valuable than solutions that don't. I will give a good example here of uh, business intelligence and how scale works, um, uh, uh, inside of BI. So we have an example where we have a team that built out a data flow that provides analytics into some Power BI reports that are hugely popular. People are really loving it. It's like it's getting our CEO, CIO attention. They want to drive it. They want to expand it. But data flows are not, all of a sudden they've reached a cap on, how much they can load, some challenges there. Well, because we have an integrated and scalable solution, we're able to take that code, because Databricks is just M code that loads into an ADLS G2's workspace and then is presented inside of Power BI. We're able to take that M code, drop that into Azure Data Factory into a scalable solution, point it right at that ADLS G2 bucket, and keep that update up and running with zero additional effort or development from anyone really inside of IT other than like moving that stuff up. And now our Power BI solutions and that work is scaling and it's meeting the needs of our organization, right? So it was a beautiful example of that grow up and that scale solution coming from that self-service environment, right? So that is one of the big things when it comes to integration. Next big thing is designing and engineering good solutions still matter, right? The cloud, okay, great, it can scale, but if you have garbage solutions, you will need far larger, more complex, more expensive, processes up and running inside the cloud, and you could still make unwieldy applications that get deployed out inside that space. That can really come around and bite any team, company, or org. So making sure that people are still following good design and engineering practices is super important, right? Chewy?
Yes, quick question, Chris, on what
Yeah.
you just mentioned. How do you guys do on Rockwell for accepting new tools, new platforms? I mean, because everybody can have many ideas in IT and say, oh, I read something about this other tool, or I found this video or this demo online. Let's give it a try on that. How do you filter that out so you don't end up with different platforms and different costs? And who is doing that filtering for you? Because I mean, you can end up with a big variety of stuff, and maybe you never end with a good architecture for what you need.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question, Chewy. So we do have like an architectural committee or group or team, right? That is responsible and empowered to go out and look at and test different solutions, different tools, different capabilities, and where we find things that we believe, as an individual, that it's going to be important and useful to the organization, we bring it back into the architectural team and say, hey, this is the issue we are having. This is the tool that we think will, or we tested out and attempted, to solve it. These are the results we're getting. Our recommendation is that we should integrate this into our framework, and this is how we should use it. And it's actually it it works very well. I mean, because we're all pulling in the same direction, trying to get the job done, right? And so it's very helpful to get pushback from people on when something's not ready, or like, yeah, I understand it's an issue, but did you consider these things? That has, generally speaking, worked very well. We're going through it actually right now with Tabular Editor 3. We came in and said, hey, this is it. We need Tabular Editor 3. I need like 20 to 50 of these at a minimum. I might need, 1,000 of these. Here's the rollout. Here's a plan. Here's the licensing. I went before our architectural board. Actually, my partner in crime went before the architectural board. They said, yep, there's literally no other option, right? You have to do this. And so we're now in negotiations, doing the whole vendor thing, right? So
Related to that, my
yeah.
question is, so it's good that you have like a committee and they will review and they will, kind of vet it out. What about cases like I've experienced where this loud type of tooling, there's so much new stuff. It just comes so fast, and there's a new feature, or it's a preview feature, or it could be done with another service inside of Azure, or you spin off Snowflake because that's now the way to. Just so much coming that there are cases where the vetting authority is like, listen, we don't have time to look at everything, so we're done. You're just going to have to use this. Like, where does that happen? I mean, do they really have the time to adapt to all the new things that people might suggest as the new
Yeah.
coolest,
No, yeah, and that's definitely true. We're definitely not doing all of the latest and greatest. We're doing many, right? But even in the example of like Synapse, we have designed, built, and orchestrated all of our work specifically around the SQL DW portion of Synapse. There's a whole bunch of other serverless stuff. There's all this other stuff that's there, but we are committed to delivery on a very large body of work into the SQL DW space. And as soon as that piece gets done, we'll start evaluating those other pieces of the integrated solution. Right. And so, it really comes down to a time and a place of when we have really the opportunity or motive to make those jumps and changes. And when you're steering a company, it is very much like steering the Titanic, right? It doesn't change on a dime, right? You have to look and think, okay, so my recommendation for Tabular Editor came with a like 18-month timeline for a rollout, right? I know I can't, it's the latest greatest thing. I've got 5 to 10 people who could use it tomorrow, but I've got another like 400 people to 1,000 who I'm going to have to train up and are going to have to be brought up to speed over the next like 18 months minimum before they're going to be really productive with that tool, right? So you have to be very purposeful and mindful of any type of architectural or tooling decision that you make, that you're going to be working with this for a long time, right? And so you have to be very prudent in these things and not just chase waterfalls, right? Kind of why I have not gotten deep into the whole Kafka side. I understand people are very big on Kafka. I think I've seen 3 or 4 attempted deployments of Kafka that have all failed due to data consistency and other issues inside the solution. So I'm not sticking on the Kafka side yet, right? Like it's just, I mean, it'll still be there, right? Like, a year or two down the road, get some people with wins, great, I'm in. But I haven't made that jump yet because of that. So,
Yep.
Excellent question, Paul.
Thank you.
Yep. Cost is something that I've kind of touched on as we've been talking, but moving to the cloud isn't going to save you money the way you're thinking about it or the way your finance guy is thinking about it. Almost guaranteed. This is a new way of looking at and working with and managing IT costs, spends, and more importantly, your capabilities, right? That ability to spin up and test out the equivalent of like $1 million Netezza box and say at the end of like 2-3 weeks that no, this is garbage, don't do this, and shut it down, is fantastic in the cloud. But you have to be able to adopt that mindset to be able to go out and choose solutions again that scale upwards and downwards, in order to manage and address the cost issue, right? This also gets to the point where I think it becomes very important for people who are working in IT and people who are working in finance in the business to become much more comfortable in talking about costs, talking about our risks, our benefits, and then getting together on how we manage those solutions, right? So instead of just once every 5 years having that budgetary conversation, this is something that needs to be an ongoing conversation, right? Because I'm always asked, well, okay, hey, I want this, just scale it up. I could scale it up. I could scale up $5 million in compute in like 25 minutes. Do you have budget for $5 million in compute? The answer is no. Fine. Let's not scale up that much, right? Let's talk back and forth about what's a reasonable dollar amount to address these needs, and then let's see what do we need to do in order to adjust our solutions to meet meet those budgets, right? You know, you can't just manage a 40 petabyte data estate for free, right? There's a cost, right?
Fernando has a
Fernando?
question.
Sir,
Yeah.
not exactly cost, but the workforce. It is an old company, no? So did you have to change the workforce, or did you mostly train them to learn the new technology?
Actually, 100% that's a cost conversation, right? Like if you do too radical of a shift, that means you can leave behind large swaths of your company who suddenly find themselves unable to work in that new framework. That type of radical change can cause massive problems when it comes to the tribal knowledge that exists inside your organization, right? And that tribal knowledge is so vital and key to you're running and keep the lights on, that a lot of people in the tech area and like people like myself can often overlook that like racing forward to grab that new thing. If we don't do it in a way that can bring everyone along with us, we're doing a really bad job of shepherding our organization to that next layer when it comes to technology, right? And sometimes that means taking those steps. That was one of the actually, I should put that as another slide. That's another good reason why we did the whole lift and shift process and then did our optimization. It's because it did allow people to begin to upskill themselves as we did that lift and shift, right? They start to understand like, DevOps, it's like 6 letters. How hard could it be, right? They were able to upskill themselves and get up to speed and realize, oh, as we're starting to modernize this, no, I need more resources than me 15 minutes a week, once a week on DevOps, right? Like maybe I need some DevOps engineers, right? And maybe I need to, be able to do a good job of justifying that at budget time. So actually get them, right? And that's a process, right? And that's a growing and educational process for the entire org. Oh, Fernando. Excellent question.
He wants a T-shirt.
All right.
I had a comment related
Yeah.
to costs and cloud, and maybe you have commentary or spin-off of it. I found in our case, in business intelligence and data analytics in my company and moving to the cloud, that this cost question is very top of mind and bubbles up out of the fact that our infrastructure as a service, all the stuff we're spinning up, is easy to come up, easy to come down, and the cost can change from week to week, month to month. It's not like you said, you buy a server and it's a 3-year, 5-year thing that you put in your data center. So I find that the BI area of moving to the cloud, even though we're moving lots more than BI into our cloud for our company, is much more, I want to keep an eye on those costs, and I want to talk about the costs, and I want to get it in front of our leaders to understand what costs are happening. Whereas the rest of infrastructure is kind of like, well, no, we set up a server and it costs, so much a month, and that's pretty standard. And I'm like, we're doing servers and compute that'll just spike and come back down. And if we don't keep an eye on when they spike, make sure they come back down, we're going to have problems. And it's an interesting new conversation that I don't think IT at my company is used to.
Paul, you're exactly right. That is how we need to evolve the way IT and finance talk together and budget this stuff out in business. It is definitively a shift in the way we talk and work, right? And that's something that most organizations are. We're all in the burgeoning baby steps of how this is going to work, right? I was like, my first blog post I ever did was like, hey, technology's been around for a microsecond of when you consider professions, right? Accounting has been around for like 2,400 years, right? And people still have to study and like learn best practices and like evolve the way they do accounting. Technology's been around for what, 45, maybe 55 years, right? Like, computing is radically different. And in that time, just in the last like 5 to like sub 10 years, we added in the cloud, which radically changed all of it, right? Like, we have to be exorbitantly patient, we have to be open to these changes, and we have to keep these messages going and make these connections. It's incredibly important for us, right? All right. And then the next big takeaway was getting and understanding what it means to have people who work and support your organization. Getting people out there, getting the right support people who are able to actually work with people and solve these more technical issues and more technical challenges is something that is exceedingly important. Making sure that you're managing your support overhead, making sure that you kind of keep you keep that under control is incredibly it's incredibly important. I don't know how often I say that. I say that all the time, but this is one factor, and this does get into the self-service side, right? Because this entire journey that we've been on has really also been a journey of what it means for departments, teams, and individuals to become self-service, self-serving when it comes to how they manage and build out their IT infrastructure, right? So, and then how you support that type of organization is important, right? No longer do you have just a singular team that does, one thing. It is now distributed, right? At Rockwell, we have, every department and every division has data teams, has networking teams, have people that do different things, right? How does your support staff help them as they're working and moving out there, right? Now, that gets to the and I apologize, I'm 45 minutes in, but that we're gonna keep going. How late do I have?
I was thinking that we run until 8, but we like to have at least 20 minutes, half an hour of our Q&A and networking. So if you've got 15, 20 minutes, does that work for you?
100%. Yep, I got it.
Awesome.
So, and that gets us into what it really means to embrace self-service, and I personally have the most depth and breadth of my experience on the business intelligence side, but I also can see how all of these pieces apply broadly across application development, security, and extend not just from that IT side, but all the way down, right? And I think that's kind of why, well, and you know, it really does mean everyone needs this technology. Everyone needs the ability to go out and do data and analytics. Everyone needs, has needs and reasons to build out apps. We all need to make sure that we're running in a secure and managed place. It's no longer just one central app team and a data team, and that's good to go, right? I'll say it because I've said it before about, Rockwell at one point in time when a business unit would say, hey, we want this application, they'd submit that into IT's queue. We'd line it up with all the other priorities, and the average time it'd take to get through that queue was just over 3.5 years. So if that application you needed, could wait that long, great. Otherwise, you were SOL, right? But self-service starts to address that, right? Self-service releases that pressure, right? When Brian can go out and make his own app to help address the needs of his department, and it's just for the 10 people, right? They would have attempted to get funding from IT, but Brian can do it in an afternoon. Awesome. That's one less thing that IT has to do, right? It's also something that, needs a lower ROI to justify it, right? No longer do you have to hold on to it and manage it and do all those iterations, right? Brian rolled it out in an afternoon, right? That is an incredible thing, right? Especially, when we talk about a scalable solution, maybe he rolls it out in an afternoon, they use it for 3 weeks and then they shut it down, right? That's fine. Nothing wrong with that, right? And in order to do that, you have to make sure that your tools that you're using inside this infrastructure have that roadmap, have that grow up capability, right? So, if Brian builds out an app and they use it for a week, awesome. Hey, great. And then they shut down. Hey, fair enough. But let's say Sarah goes out and builds out an app. And over the course of the next week or month or so, it goes from 5 to 50 to 5,000 users. Suddenly, you need more than just what Sarah put together. If you pick the right tools, you do the right pieces, suddenly you could take those and you could scale those up into an enterprise grade solution that has the compute, has the backups, has that engineering backbone, and it can start to be managed by an engineering team. And so that's really important. The example I gave earlier was the data flows, but that is really true as you start to look at your self-service offerings, making sure that you understand what that grow up path is and what would trigger the need for that grow up path is super important. It's also why I fell in love with Power BI when I realized the architecture of it. I'm like, oh, so, and this is a while ago, so I'll date myself. So I can build a model in Excel, just farting around. Then I can deploy it into, I can put it into a Power BI PBX file. I can deploy it out in the servers. And if it gets popularity, I can take that model and I can deploy it out into analysis services and then point all my reports to that. Holy cow, talk about a grow up path, right? Now some changes kind of broke some of those story points, but they're coming back. Oh, Chewy, is that NDA? I said it. All that's about to come back. So,
No.
okay, good. But yeah, that whole framework, that sometimes they'll break it, but they'll bring it back, right? That's incredible, right?
Okay. Nobody
There's a
knew.
question. There's a question Fernando had. Fernando,
Oh.
why don't you go ahead and unmute since you had a couple questions there?
What was my question? No,
Well,
those were not questions, just comments.
Oh, okay.
Because
Yep, you got to
the
roll back.
executive sponsor is crucial, no?
Yeah.
I imagine what Chuy just asked a while ago. The answer is leadership, no?
Yeah. There is no doubt that a strong executive sponsor can cut through all the red tape, create that true north, and get everybody marching in that direction. It is what the Power BI CAT team and the other Power BI, well, like anyone inside, like Microsoft and Azure, when you talk about a rollout, they will talk about having that executive sponsor as a key principle. I will say that it is possible for anyone to put on that mantle of leadership and lead if you are willing to withstand the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, um, uh, and continue to take up arms on a day in and day out basis and keep driving forward and keep talking about that vision. It is definitively the harder route to go down, and it is one that you may find yourself forced into. But it is, it is definitely better if you can find an executive sponsor that that can help you move these things forward and share that vision with other executives in the organization. All right.
Oh, Chris, one question in that regard. On the previous slide, you mentioned something about having a roadmap for tools, platforms, also considering what's going to happen in moving forward. How do you guys handle Power BI in Rockwell? I mean, how many people make decisions on, okay, you know what, this new feature is coming up, but let's just evaluate it first. Let's see pros and cons for our business case, and then we can roll it out. Or, defining milestones in the future for you on saying, okay, this is the way we embrace Power BI. How many people is involved in that effort?
Yeah, that's a great question. Rockwell's approach is, might be different than other organizations. We believe, we very much believe in two pillars. One, which is security, right? Any solution, anything that rolls out has to be secured and it has to meet our standards, right? If it doesn't fall into this path, then we don't allow it, right? And especially when it comes to our Power BI platform is all, while we have organization to it, it is primarily looked at as a self-service platform, right? So that means we have to be very, kind of rigid around the security, right? Like we have to make sure that it's secure in the solution, the design, the sourcing, and the management, right? But then we also look at it as we have to make sure that people can't hurt each other as much as we possibly can, right? Like, so you can't do stuff that hurts me and I can't do stuff that hurts you, right? As long as we have these two guardrails in place, we call this the analytics highway, right? People are just flying down. So anything that doesn't break one of those things, we basically enable at Rockwell. Now, with that said, there are features that Microsoft will roll out that will where they will not give us a toggle on that we, so we can't control. Like I would have never turned on composite models because they're not to snuff. They don't perform well, right? And maybe okay. So let me rephrase. If you work in a company that's sub 100 to 200 people, maybe you can get composite models to work fine for you if you're well skilled and able. It is. It is not an enterprise thing today. It will be in 3 to 5 years. 100% sure it will be, right? And maybe sooner. I don't know, but it's not today. And if I could have turned it off, so couldn't go on out, I would have turned it off. I didn't, or I couldn't, so I didn't. And we now have like this big executive dashboard that's a composite model, and it's a dog, and everyone's pissed off, and like they've now brought it to me because I'm well, you're the MVP, you fix everything, and I said there's not GA, not ready for prime time.
Not yet.
It's dead in the
Still
water, right?
preview. Still
Yeah,
preview.
it's still in preview, right? But so people don't listen, right? So again, they're kind of violating this thing, right? But they didn't give us a key, so.
And if it helps to we're on a similar journey with Power BI, those kinds of things, and kind of what things are, how many are in the group that think about what is valuable and how's that structured, and go to your pyramid slide that you had up as reference. For us, it's The BI team that is really into the development of deep technical stuff is 3. And then we encourage in that self-guided self-service as many as we can get, as long as, and that's up to like 30 in an internal group community now, building their own things. And they're encouraged to explore. So sometimes they're ahead of the BI team on some of the newest features, but we kind of maintain that oversight and treat it as you're at the bottom of this. You're still doing individual things, even though you're in this community of building things. So that's the size. Does that answer the,
Yeah.
that's another perspective on your question, Joey?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll say that we have 3 people as well in our enterprise team. So
Yeah, and I guess the reason why I was asking you on the how many people is involved on that, I think I'm kind of embarrassed in a way to mention what I'm about to say, but I think the Power BI journey for everyone is different, and I guess we all know that. But
Oh, yeah.
when I work, the reason I got a job here is because they just went full steam in Power BI. So they needed people for supporting and running the administration of the platform. So that's why I got the job here. But before that, my understanding is that they got Power BI just because they got E5 licensing, because other reasons. So people was already using Power BI, but they got limitations because of the pro licenses on E3. Which doesn't exist or is not covered. So in E5, everybody got it, and they were like, okay, here's the car, here are the keys. You don't know how to drive? I don't mind. I give you the car already. You're on your own. So that was one of the aspects for not training. And I've been working so hard trying to get the training as part of the equation. But there are some misconceptions about training. I mean, when you are E5, you're already investing a lot of money with Microsoft. And they have you like a big partner. I mean, you're putting good money with them. My company, they didn't know that you can get some training benefits without paying more money.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so yeah. So if you're not in the Enterprise Skills Initiative, get involved in the Enterprise Skills Initiative. It's for those E5 customers. Like the trainings, the resources that are available for you are really significant, right? And it's something that we talk about all of the time when it comes to onboarding. And I do highly recommend that you just get you always keep in mind how many people have never opened Power BI who are just opening it today, right? And you really need to have a scalable solution when it comes to training, when it comes to helping, when it comes to supporting them, because it will be definitively overwhelming, right? Paul, you said you have 30. Well, we went from 1,400 to 30,000 because our company just did the E5 purchase, right? So now all of a sudden everyone has the Power BI Pro, right?
Right.
And so that's why we want to like hone in on this pyramid and talk about like our solutions, not just the technology solutions, but the person solutions, the way we interact. All of those need to be able to scale, and we need to be able to run and support each other, right? Because it flat out classic way of working through these problems and issues will not work, right? Do you need a support desk? Yeah, you need a support desk, but a support desk can't help would never help someone write an email. They'd never help someone make a PowerPoint or create an Excel file. But you're going to find people are going to think that your support desk should suddenly help you create a Power BI file, right? Or troubleshoot that. And the reality is, they're not going to be able to do that. So anything you do, you really need to make sure that you're doing it in a way that you're going to be able to have a broad community to be able to scale these things, right? Thanks, Marv. And that's what we talk about when it comes to working inside this framework, right? I think I absolutely love this because while the Power BI team is what put this in as part of their enterprise rollout plan, and I think this was Melissa
Coach.
Coates. I think Melissa Coates came up with this. I could be wrong, but it was in her one of her documents at first. But so I'm going to credit her, and apologies to whoever if they didn't come up with it. But this framework is so powerful because it's not just business intelligence. It is everything when we talk about moving to the cloud, right? And we need to have solutions that address each of these levels. And we need to be very understanding when it comes to how we manage with the tight control in enterprise and broad solutions. And we have to be comfortable releasing that control at those lower layers, right? And we have to know and grow as an organization and how this works and operates so that we can feel comfortable with this, right? Because it's a big change, right? And you know, things will definitively slip out of our control. They invariably must slip out of our control. But that doesn't mean we can't maintain our security and we can't maintain environments that prevent people from hurting other people, right? And so those continue to be our big pillars that we work and operate inside this space, right? And so that's why I go back to this, and I think I have rebuilt the, that's not their copy paste slide, right? Like I've rebuilt this pyramid several times because I think this is a perfect illustration of how we need to be working and operate in the cloud. Now, and that just goes on to my next slides, right? And if you watch Microsoft's demos and Microsoft stuff, they talk about this all the time, right? We need to be empowering every individual, every team, and every organization, right? You need to be looking at how you solve problems across each of these frameworks, and you need to be applying the appropriate rules and governance and support mechanisms for each one of them. Okay. Um, yep. There you go. That is Melissa Coates' latest update on that slide. The question is, how do you do this, right? I am an exorbitantly firm believer in that the best way to manage these types of environments is through internal communities of people who can help each other out, who can give that person that hand up, who can help solve issues and address them. Is through organic growth inside that community is the only way you'll be able to appropriately scale your solutions and your environments to address these needs, right? This is where having an executive sponsor is great on your inception and your rollout and your initial phases, but the longevity of the solutions that you have is going to be greatly dependent upon the internal networks that you've built out and their ability to self-sustain and self-grow and self-manage, right? That means you need to find mechanisms to bring these people together, encourage their growth, encourage their interaction, give them the tools that they need to help each other out to be able to self-serve, empower them to go out there and engage with other people. I think it's really important that you have that ecosystem. And in order to grow that, I think there's really a few simple things that anyone can do to start down this path, right? And growth can start a little bit at a time, and it can stay a little bit, but it can stay little, but you'll at some point in time you'll see this exponential growth and you'll see this explosion. And so I kind of recommend like following this pattern for how you do this and you grow that community. I highly recommend finding some way to connect and share and reach out en masse with your community. I say the way I've been doing it, the way I really like to do this is inside of Yammer or inside of Teams, I share stuff constantly with people, right? And literally, if someone asks me a question, and if you ever are unfortunate enough to be dependent upon me to solve one of your problems, you'll notice that my Google foo is super strong because I just go to Google and I just Google it for the most part. But anytime I pull up a story or an article or a video on how to solve something, I just share it on Yammer. Look at this. Was looking into this. This is really cool. Boom. It's out. It is 30 seconds of effort. to make those slow trickle feeds, to make those touch points, to have people, see what's going on, see the possibilities that are out there, right? I can't express how valuable this is to an organization to get that out there. I do also highly recommend a weekly connection, right? That growth, those individuals who are out there who are going to be connecting to you, and growing and supporting this environment, they need to be able to have a specific point and place that they can come to get help and assistance and guidance. It's not going to be your service desk. You cannot make enough time in your day to answer every question that comes along when people come up to us. Yes, this is the power hours, right? Fridays from 8 to 10 a.m. I am in power hours. Come rain, come shine, come whatever. That is where I am. I am pledged to be there no matter what. And it's the answer I give people when people send me an email. I have a response and copy and paste. Wow, that looks like a really great question. Actually, I have a few of them. That looks like a great question. Come to Power Hours. Oh, that looks like a real difficult challenge or problem. You should come to Power Hours. We'll work through that as a community, right? Because I cannot. I don't have time, right? And you don't have time either to sit down and answer all these questions. Now, when my VP comes and says, well, then I stop what I'm doing and I have that meeting, right? But yeah, you cannot solve the world's problems. So get people, channel them into a single space. Uh, it's impossible, right? Uh, Additionally, find the time for a monthly connection. This is your user groups, right? Now we went from having a Power BI user group to a Power Platform user group. I'm considering actually splitting them out. They're really kind of two different audiences. I don't know. We're going to see how that continues to go, right?
I've got an internal one for Power BI, and I'm going to make a Power Platform one separate.
Yeah, yep. Our challenge was the only leaders who are willing to organize it were the same Power BI people, and I don't have enough time to manage 2 monthly groups. So if I can find another person, I will definitively let them take the lead on that stuff. But have that connection, show people what's new in the service, show people the new stuff, bring people out and let them show what solutions they've built out and are delivering. The amount of value that you'll find inside your organizations is mind-boggling. The stuff that I've seen come out of our teams is just continues to impress me. And then I am a huge fan of, uh, you know, I don't have enough time to organize trainings and all of that stuff like Chewy that you're talking about, right? I can't. You take full-time training coordinators to get all these people lined up. It is too much effort. But I will once a year. I will orchestrate and I will line up trainings over the course of 2 days. Right. And I have an internal conference now. We call it the Power Hour conference every year, and we line up trainings for 4 or 5 hours every single for last year was 2 days. I think this year it looks like it's going to be 3. But we line up these trainings, we bring in those speakers, we find people to come in and talk to us, and get as everyone involved and engaged with these things. And we have different tracks and we lay it all out, and that really helps me confine my planning and estimating to a singular one-time event. It's also super helpful because that shows the how many people are interested in your organization. It creates awareness. It creates attention to it. It's also, well, it's not just 1 or 2 people going to a training. It's, well, hey, we're going to the conference, right? Aren't you coming, right? So it helps clears decks and slides. It also means Microsoft sends you cases of swag that you have to now bring into the office and get rid of. But you should definitely do that. All right. And I'm going to kind of finish with this. Uh, you know, You guys can do these things, right? This wasn't rocket science. This wasn't a group of individuals that were smarter than every single one else on the planet. It's not the case. This is something that is within your grasp. It's within your organization's ability to do this. Even if it feels like it's an impossible lift, or that you have political pressures that will, overwhelm you, or whatever the case is, I have 100% confidence that you can work through these things. All right. People have been out there. There are resources in the community that are willing to, help and engage in conversations like this. I know that you guys can do this. I have 100% confidence in you guys. All right. Start small, fail fast, and iterate. Okay. You guys have any other questions for me?
This is awesome. Thank you, Chris.
You bet.
I feel like this is a great point to say, yes, more questions, and we're going to stop the recording so that we can encourage folks to turn on the camera and stick around for these questions and network a bit. We missed that since we